Hello and welcome back to the Majority Show, Scotland's #1 anti-nationalist show, coming at you live on Facebook, YouTube and Twitter. We are broadcasting, as usual, every week at 7 p.m. So glad to have you with us already. We have a lot to cover tonight. So let's get talking with Mary and David. What have we got?
Hi, everyone. I'll be talking about our First Minister, Nicola Sturgeon, jetting off to a sunny resort at COP27 in Egypt, while people are freezing and dying back in Scotland.
Tough.
Tough stuff indeed. I will be exposing yet another big nationalist lie.
Oh, big nationalist lies. We all like those. Well, we don't like the lies themselves, but we like your
We like to
exposure
expose
of
them.
them. Yes. And I'll be asking, is Nicola Sturgeon a feminist?
And of course, we have Zoomer of the Week.
All right, all that and much more back in a few seconds. Right, so well, welcome back. As usual, we start the show with a shout out to our donors, people like yourself who are watching the show, who have very graciously donated to the show to keep us running and to get it started, keep us running. And we appreciate anything that you can bring our way. There is a donate button on our website, and if you can do that, we'd be very happy.
And you can also buy a t-shirt or a mug from our store. They're all at reasonable prices, and a little bit of the sale from each one helps support the show.
Indeed. We would also like to thank our friends at UK Union Voice and at United Against Separation for supporting the show by letting us broadcast directly to their Facebook pages from where I know many of you are watching right now. Thanks, guys.
Right, we can't say this enough. Please do subscribe to us on YouTube. If you're on Twitter and you're watching this right now, you will not be able to make comments. So go on to YouTube and then you can join the chat along with all the people who have already joined us. So many of them.
And wherever you are, please like, share, comment, tell friends, extend our reach at the click of a button.
And as usual, I'll be managing all the comments tonight, so you'll see my eyes squinting to read them. So please keep them short, and I'll try to get as many of them up as I possibly can. Thank you.
Right, okay, so we have a real busy show today, so we will be back in just a second to get it all started. Right, okay, so this week saw, we'll just get straight into it. This week saw the start of something very unusual, not the start of something very unusual, dissent in the SNP ranks. Some might even say the SNP are revolting.
I see what you did there.
Anyway, issue is the upcoming gender rights bill, which its proponents claim is to make the lives of transgender people easier. And while its opponents say a bill destroys women's rights. So just a quick recap. The main parts of the bill include reducing the age at which people can change their gender from 18 to 16, the waiting period to be legally recognised cut to 3 months plus a 3-month reflection period, and the ending of the requirement for a medical diagnosis of gender dysphoria before people can change their gender. On their own, these changes can be debated, and we may come back to them as we go through this chat, and also depends a little bit on your comments. Thank you for that, Alan. But the issue really, I think, that's facing Scotland or Scottish voters anyway, is that there are many women's groups who are worried that the bill allows predatory men access to women's spaces. So, for example, shelters, rape crisis centres, toilets, changing rooms, hospital wards, prisons, and so on.
Okay, well, I think it's important to say here that women are not worried about genuine transgender people. They're worried about abusive men taking advantage of the rules.
Go ahead, David.
I agree with that. I mean, the point that's being missed here is we're all concerned about the rights of transgender people. Completely, we get that. But what is being ignored is the fact that the rules which are being relaxed or scrapped are leave it so much open to abuse that people who are predatory or who are unscrupulous or are Machiavellian can take advantage of them, and that seems to be being ignored by people who are making these rules, and that's what I really don't get. That's what I think people in authority don't get. It is really not right.
Well, I'm not sure if Machiavelli ever wanted to get into the ladies' toilets, to be honest. But we,
well, they got up to all sorts, didn't they?
In those days, well, there was a lot going on. I mean, men wore tights in those days, and I'm not saying that's the thing. But anyway, moving. The big thing here is that why are they pursuing this legislation when they're so out of touch with the popular opinion? Just here's an example here. Okay, so these graphs from the Sunday Times. Should Scotland reduce the age at which people can change their gender from 18 to 16? 62% people say no. And then should the waiting period be cut from 2 years to 3 months? 50% say no. Only 25% say yes. Should a medical diagnosis of gender dysphoria be required before people can change their legal gender? 39% no, 26% say yes. Well, many don't know us in that particular case. We see a big... that seems to be quite a big disconnect between what the general public wants, and that's not even just saying what women only want, because there's no polling for that there, but what the general public want versus what Nicola Sturgeon wants. Any points on that, David?
Well, yeah, I mean, I think it's very telling. I don't think that trans issues have really grabbed the public's attention, and I think that the emphasis that is being put on the rights of trans people are wholly disproportionate with what people actually believe. I mean, as I said, it's sure we will feel terribly sorry for people who are going through the trauma of changing gender. Yeah, that must be incredibly difficult thing to do. I get that, but I don't believe that this transphobia exists. I really don't. It seems to be like a manufactured grievance, and to me, it isn't at all in any way in line with what people in the street, if you'd like to put it that way, actually believe. So I just think they're getting this one badly wrong, the SNP, and I have the feeling that it's going to be this particular issue that will tip public support for them over the edge and back to the more mainstream parties.
Well, do you really think that there is such a groundswell amongst these women's groups and women in general that would actually tip the balance?
Well, what I do think is, having been at the Women Won't We protest that day outside Holyrood, I saw the genuine concern of a lot of women. Mainly, I would say, those women were in the main same-sex, like lesbian women. You could see that, and they were making that very clear. And against lesbian women, you've got these people who are trans, and they are having a go at, and if you like, dismissing the rights of lesbian women, and it's almost unbelievable.
Yes, well, there's definitely a lot of infighting between the LGB and the T.
Exactly,
and that's a thing now. I mean, I'm going to skip forward a wee bit to something that I would think about. I just think that something is important. It should be the opposite way around, really.
Yep.
That something that is important as this to a person should have more safeguards on it, especially when it's young children, young adults involved. Many of these young adults apparently have autism. Many are from troubled backgrounds, and they've come into they've got a preliminary maybe diagnosis or something that they say themselves that they feel out of place in the world, and that manifests itself as being a trans, wanting to change gender. There's studies that say that if left alone, many of these people will grow up and become gay or lesbian adults. So there's this rush. The rush to diagnosis has been a real problem. We've seen this in the Tavistock Clinic in London, and also some. Even today, there was a thing about young kids, 9-year-olds getting what they called puberty blockers,
Yeah.
and so on. So I mean, it seems strange to me. Why aren't they doing the opposite, saying before you transition, get proper counselling from,
Right.
it's funded by the government. Then after that, or during the process, if you still want to go through with that, then you should more support. But what I actually saw in the paper just before I came on here was that they're cutting mental health support by £38 million. That's already a 3-year waiting list for mental health charities, and it's a 3-year waiting list to get into to be seen at the gender clinic, Sandefjord Gender Clinic. And so they're talking all about this, like shorten all these times. But instead, they should be spending the money, I feel, spending the money on giving people more support.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
they should be shortening the times at Sandefjord Clinic and shortening the times to actually be able to see a therapist and be able to get the counselling that these young people need. Not shortening the times for older men, predatory men, to be able to identify as a woman. And I have a good comment here from Alan Jack, who says they were going to make a named person responsible for people up to 18 years old, but allow children to take puberty blockers. Crazy.
It is incredible.
I think the SNP are all over the place when it comes to deciding when our young people become adults. I mean, at 14, they start sending them out all their voting, information, and then they can actually vote from 16. But then they wanted the named person until 18. Does that mean you have to take your named person with you to vote, or I mean?
Yeah, exactly.
Well, they do seem to have.
Know what they're doing.
They do seem to have an extraordinary interest in young people, and I don't necessarily think all that is healthy. We're hearing all kinds of. We have seen all kinds of sexual inappropriate behaviour to young people. There's been the stories coming to the surface about the youth parliament. There's much more to come on this, and I think the issue really is we have vulnerable young people, whether they're children or young adults, who are coming from different backgrounds, and I think to some extent they've been fed into a pipeline of that says, okay, so you say you're transgender, therefore we will just push you along this path.
Yeah.
And you were seeing that many people were later saying, well, why? No, these. In fact, I saw something just by chance. Sandefjord ruined my life. And and this is what people come out the other end. And they're like, well, maybe that wasn't what I really wanted. That was what all these adults around me wanted.
Well, it's a kind of a pipeline, isn't it?
Yeah.
Once the kids get into this pipeline, it's if a kid at one stage says, I think I'm trans, then they start going down a prescribed route of medication.
Yes, well, that's what happened certainly
surgery
in Tavistock, which has now been disbanded because of the amount of scandals that are on there now. The Sandefjord Clinic in Glasgow hasn't been broken up yet. Now, let's go back to the SNP. So they had this vote on it, and there was a revolt, as you say. They were revolting, and a number of SNP MSPs declined to vote, abstained, or refused to vote entirely. Most notably, Ash Regan, who resigned her ministership. Not that anyone would notice her. I don't know. Had you heard of her before?
I'd never heard of her. I must admit, I'd never heard of her.
I've never heard of most of the ministers. No. I think there's about 110 of them. Is that right?
What, really?
No, there are, literally.
What? Really? I don't.
Well,
think
okay, I might have made that up.
I thought there were 100. Well, certainly, it seems like there are 110 of them.
And they've only got 23 MSPs, including the Greens, so this might be a little high. But anyway, never mind.
Right. Okay.
Well, there should be about 10, but there's a
lot
more than that.
Well, perhaps. Anyway, she said, my conscience would not allow me to vote for a bill where I could not be 100% certain that women and girls would not be in danger. Well, Sturgeon wasn't too happy about that, was she? She basically said she sent a very nasty letter. And basically, we have it here. Okay. I note, at no stage have you approached me to voice your concerns about the Gender Recognition Reform Bill. I therefore accept your resignation. Nothing like thank you for your service, anything like that, for your long work with the party, your long blah, 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 as you would expect, just like that's it.
Very much sour grapes there.
Yeah, sour grapes. Anyway,
Absolutely.
so...
Yeah, I was just going to say, I mean, I saw this, I'm sure you guys did too, in business many times. If you had someone who worked at a company and was in a place of trust and was valued, and they decided to leave, maybe to go and work for a competitor, you would always get notice. It was a memo, and it would be, yes, we thank whoever it is for their efforts and wish them well. And that was it. That was all they would say, you know. And that was it. It was so peremptory, if you like. It wasn't in any way flowing and saying, oh, great, I'm really sorry to leave him. It was very, very angry. And this is what Sturgeon has showed this week. She's clearly a control freak. She's not used to be confronted publicly by her, what she sees as her minions. And so when it happens, in her disbelieving fury, she resorts to unpleasantness, vitriol, and, you know, having a go, frankly. And it's great to see the mask slipping and to see the real Sturgeon, which is exactly what we're seeing in that email, or that letter, I should say, about Ash. Very much.
But anyway, Ash wasn't having any of it, so she came on telly yesterday. This is what she said.
Yeah.
What did you make of the First Minister's reaction to your resignation?
The First Minister was well aware of the concerns that I held on this issue.
We believe you.
Yeah, well, so that's that then. And I think there was some backtracking from Sturgeon there. Oh, it was just she didn't contact me specifically about this something or other. You're just like, oh, I don't think so.
Directly. Yeah, in the time-honoured fashion, she didn't contact me directly, although she had access to me. Right. Okay.
Well, and they've known for. I mean, Sturgeon does know that these people are against this.
Of course, she does.
I mean, interestingly, it's the people in their own party. Maybe we'll let you in a second. Sorry, but interesting, it's people in their own party that are rebelling. I didn't see any of the Greens rebelling. Did they rebel? This because it's the Greens that are pushing this, as we all know.
Absolutely.
The Greens, led by Patrick Harvey, they have this agenda that they will do this, push this particular policy, and. I noticed as well that they had this. I mean, they think it's not enough. Here's this thing here. Now Scottish Greens are calling for under 16s to be allowed to change gender. This lady, Maggie Chapman, basically says no restrictions on it at all. She wants nothing. You know, basically just say you change your gender if you don't, if you have, or if you want to, and you know, and for children as well, nothing. And this is the kind of thing, this SNP administration being led by the nose by the Greens. Mary, sorry, I'll let you back in.
Oh, sorry, I'm in the middle of doing something else. Okay. Well, I just wanted to say that what I read in the Telegraph said that some of the MSPs who had voted against it feel as if they've been misled by John Swinney, because he had promised them that they would be allowed to vote with their conscience.
Mm-hmm.
John Mason was one of those 7 SNP MSPs who defied the vote, and another 2 MSPs had abstained. But he said that MSPs had been assured of a dispensation. It's a bit like getting from the Pope, right? A dispensation from John Swinney, provided that they told the party's whip office beforehand of their concerns and intention. And there was another MSP who voted against the bill, said that there was a clear indication from Swinney that those who had grounds of objection on the basis of conscience or constituents' interests would be free to vote as they wished. So I think they certainly feel misled, and I think they feel that they've been treated unfairly. Of course, I think John Swinney's denying all of this and saying that it was definitely a whip vote.
Right. Well, I mean, it seems to some extent to be kind of like a virtue signalling movement, you know, where people are trying to gain political points, divide people on the basis of this particular group of transgender people. And I don't know if the transgender people really gain that much out of it, to be honest. Mm. I mean, what do they gain? They get less time to do something when perhaps there should be more time and more attention on them. I don't know. It seems a bit strange to me. What else we got? So, yeah, and also this continuing push, as I said, from the Greens to try and, you know, lower the age of consent and lower the age of everything, so that it's just, you know, it seemed very. I don't know. I feel it is a little bit predatory, and it's done with this kind of smiling face. Like, yeah, we're doing it for the kids, but it's they're really doing it for their own power and to try and get kids into their own influence.
Absolutely right.
We've got a comment here from Fat Shot Golf. Okay, the SNP don't care about trans rights, but in my humble opinion, are using it as a trend because as it's trending and as a tool to stop us talking about and the press reporting on their utter failure. Is it another distraction?
Yeah, definitely a distraction. But you can't be distracted when J.K. Rowling takes it on. So this is the core of our thing. What happened was J.K. Rowling came on with it wearing this T-shirt. Let me try and get this. Oh, here we go. Of course, it's quite famous image now. J.K. on. Oh my God, Nicola Sturgeon, destroyer of women's rights.
Yeah,
that is terrible. So. Of course, then Nicola responded by saying that she was a real feminist, kind of implying that J.K. Rowling and her followers weren't. And then J.K. hit back saying that calling Nicola the first... actually, she did that when the equalities... You talked about this, David, didn't you? The equalities minister, the SNP equalities leaders said... to threaten to beat the F out of TERFs. And so basically, this idea that Nicola Sturgeon is she a person who has looked after women's rights?
Not in the slightest. Not at all. She's happily sacrificing the rights of women to meet the Greens' very, very narrow, very, very big poisonous agenda. I think she's been disgraceful. Let's be honest. Who would you trust of the two to have the best interests of women at heart, Nicola Sturgeon or J.K. Rowling? In all honesty, who would anybody trust?
Nicola Sturgeon only ever has her own interests at heart.
Well, it's not just...
There's no room for anyone else.
It's really Nicola Sturgeon and Patrick Harvey, if we're thinking about it, right? So that's the two of them versus J.K. Rowling. Now, J.K. also leapt in to defend Ash Regan. She said she was a principled politician who was seen as a heroine to future generations, and as she resigned against her profoundly misogynistic gender reforms. I mean, I think a lot of... Well, I'm not going to speak on behalf of women, obviously, but I do think that a lot of women they have spent such a long time getting rights, getting spaces for themselves, getting established and getting equality, and then to see men, which in many cases they are, abusive men in many cases, try to subvert that and get into their safe spaces, and by claiming that they are the real women. And I think there's quite a lot of anger. I don't know whether that really will build up into a real electoral wave or not. David thinks so. Mary, you think? Are women, in your opinion, do you think women are angry enough at this to make a difference?
I'm not sure. Well, I'm sorry, Mary.
Sorry. I was just going to... women are 50% of the population. So... if they're being affected by something, I've certainly seen that there's enough women out there who are going out and protesting and putting out a lot of stuff on social media and speaking out against this. I mean, women are not going to just sit back quietly and let this happen.
Well, that definitely seems the case. There had been many demonstrations so far. And I mean, if you want anyone on your side, J.K. Rowling is good. I think she's got, I don't know how many millions of followers. She has millions and millions of followers and such a strong reputation anyway. And as I think said before, it must hurt Sturgeon as a book lover. She's always telling us that the most famous author in the world is basically against her. And vehemently against her, to the point where she's been writing articles in the paper and writing a T-shirt saying she's a destroyer of women's rights. So let me see, what have we got? There was one last bit. Oh yeah, of course. I mean, it's a bit difficult for Nicola Sturgeon to say that she's a real feminist when she didn't do anything at all about Alex Salmond.
Quite.
Right? Yeah. I mean, what did she do? Did she stood by and she just didn't know, that this was going on?
Yeah,
I mean, does anyone really believe that?
Well, if she didn't know what was going on, she was literally the only person in Scotland who didn't know what was going on. And she spent practically every waking hour with the guy for pretty much all of the 8 or so years before these incidents came to light. and she didn't know. Right. Okay. Yeah, I buy that. Yeah. Right. No. Sorry. No.
Well,
not.
we're seeing, so it's perhaps significant that we're seeing these cracks in the SNP.
Yeah. big time.
This is the first, it's not a large scale rebellion, but it perhaps shows the ways before. I mean, the party's already split, of course. The hardcore nutters have gone to Alba.
That's right.
And then they're trying to split the rest amongst the gender things. Many women, I don't know why Joanna Cherry's in the party with all this going on. She's continued complaining about this issue. Why is she still there? Because she can't go to Alba and she can't go to Labour. It doesn't make much sense. But this cracks in the party just mean, when you see that, when someone sees that, it means that they know it's the fair game. Right? And also the media sees it as well. Go, all right, okay. Now we've got someone who's going to say something against Sturgeon. Oh, this is good. This is a bit novel. Okay, so that was us covering that as much as we could. We would like to get, we did try and contact For Women Scot, just didn't have enough time. If you know someone there or someone in a group like that who would like to come on to the show and talk about these kind of issues, we'd be very happy to have you on. In fact, if you know anyone who would like to talk about any issue and is presentable, then, not to say that we are so presentable, but anyway, presentable, then please do get them to get in touch with the show.
Yeah.
Coming up, Mary's going to talk about Sturgeon's jolly to Egypt, walk like an Egyptian, as it were, and David is going to take us through another big nationalist lie, and we'll be back in just a second. Right, Mary.
Thanks, Mark. So early next week, Nicola Sturgeon will be jetting off to COP27. Last year's COP26 was held in Glasgow, if you remember. And the reason that we know this is because Nicola Sturgeon took thousands of selfies to show herself hobnobbing with actual important people. I mean, nobody could have missed it with the thousands of photos that went out. But she didn't like it when her nationalism was snubbed by none other than President Obama.
That's right.
Oh, yes. That was a big moment. We should have got that on the thing. We should have had that. The clip ready.
Mark, do you have that little meme of Nicola at COP26 last year?
Oh, yes. Okay. We'll get there eventually.
So,
all right, there she is. Okay.
This year, COP27 is it's going to be on from this Sunday to a week on Friday. So it's nearly 2 weeks at the resort town of Sharm el Sheikh in Egypt. So
very nice too.
Lovely and sunny down there, nice and warm, beaches, the whole lot. So many are criticising Nicola Sturgeon for going at the time when we're having a cost of living crisis here in Scotland. And not only a cost of living crisis, we're also having a Scottish NHS crisis. Am I not there?
Oh, okay, sorry, you disappeared.
I'll just keep talking.
No, I think we could hear you fine. It's all right. So I don't know what happened there.
Not to worry. The A&E waiting times are out of control. There's lack of beds in the hospitals and medical staff, and people are having to wait weeks, months, years for operations. And as well as those two, we've also got a social care crisis where many vulnerable people are just not getting the kind of care that they need. There's also a shortage of care staff. But during all of this, Miss Sturgeon, believes that flying off to Egypt and being surrounded by actual world leaders is more important. Yeah. What do you think, guys?
Well, I just think it's typical of her, her conceit, if you like, that she feels she has to go there. Honestly, she's like a little boy with an autograph book turning up at the training camp for a football team. It's just pathetic. Selfies. I mean, really, have you no self-awareness, woman? Do you not know how utterly absurd you're making yourself look with this nonsense? Please, you're just making a show of yourself. Stop it, please. You're making Scotland look ridiculous. I just wish you would take a tumble to yourself and stop doing this. You're not fooling a single person. Please stop it. That's what I think.
Okay. Well, I mean, we all think that she's going there as you've said, David, she's a narcissist, right?
Yep.
And she has to go there and get herself.
Well, it's the whole thing is she believes that she's a world leader, right? She's equal. She believes she's equal to these other people, right? But she doesn't have.
slightly disagree with that. I think she believes she should be equal to them, but because she's not, she's reduced to saying, "Oh, President Obama, can I just have a wee picture, please?" And that's it. And that's how pathetic is that? Nobody who thinks they're the equivalent of a president of the US would go and take a selfie with them.
No, that's right. That was the point I was going to make.
Sorry,
It's like,
sorry, Mark.
No, it's the same point, but it's the same. It's like, I'm not going to take selfies with other folk.
Yeah.
Right? They can take selfies with me.
Yes.
That's the point, right? That's the thing. If you're top, you don't take selfies with,
Quite.
say, hey, I don't know, hey, Obama, go ahead.
Well,
take a selfie.
Well, no wonder.
Your selfie, not mine.
Well, I was going to say, no wonder that the Nicola Sturgeon outfit was the #1 selling Halloween costume this year.
Here we have this one. There we go.
Yep.
Selfie Sturgeon costume includes helmet, wig, scary face mask, selfie stick, hold on, I'm destroying Scotland as fast as I can badge, and nationalism.
Nationalism included in there as well.
Use your own phone.
Well, unfortunately, guys, when she's off taking her selfies and trying to get herself in there, she's neglecting the most important issues that face Scotland, our health and the well-being of our citizens.
Well, that was the thing that Sunak was supposed to not go, right? Because he basically said, I think I got rid of the page already. He said he wasn't going to go because he was dealing with domestic issues. And then the very next thing we hear this morning is he has to go. He's been bullied into going, right? So at least if he's going now, well, why does Sturgeon need to go?
Quite.
Well, that's what this Anne Smith is saying. Rishi will represent the UK. Why does she have to waste more taxpayers' money?
Right. So Rishi's going to be there, and I mean, it's a waste of time. Well, it's a waste of time. I mean, it's just a big jolly, really, right? So, what did they do, Mary, at the last one? Did they any results?
Well, I actually Googled it to see if the COP meetings that they're having every year, if they make any difference to climate change or saving the world. So I put in, COP26, has it made any difference? And basically the answer I got back was very little progress has been made, which I think sums it up, but I'll be happy to give everyone a little bit more information about what's happened since last year. As far as emissions, so there's a few things that they deal with, a few different things. One of them is emissions. So last year, nearly 200 countries agreed to improve their emissions in time for this year's COP27. But only 24 countries have actually done so. So that's about 12%.
Yep.
So the other 88% haven't managed to do it. And China has resisted pressure to improve. Okay, so that was on emissions. On deforestation, more than 100 countries pledged last year to end deforestation by 2030. However, Amazon deforestation last year hit its highest level since 2006.
Oh, really?
Preliminary data is suggesting that it rose 23%.
Yeah, well, I mean, this is a good point. No, this is Brazil, right? Just Brazil. What influence does Nicola Sturgeon have on Brazil? Right, zero. I mean, let's zero. What's she going to do? Go up and say to them, what can she do? We're going to send our army. We're going to stop trade with you. We're going to do this. We're going to do whatever. It's nonsense. Can't do anything. So why?
Well, it's shocking that it's actually risen 23%.
That's appalling, actually.
9 months, actually. It's not even for the full year.
Well, it depends. I mean, I'm sure we haven't. You have to
have a strong word with them.
Yeah, you have to cross-reference all those because a lot of those figures are just made up.
Well, this is from Green Lead Tech.
Well, I would still be very, very wary because basically a lot of these groups actually, it's coming to light that a lot of these groups are actually all funded by the same source. So what happens is billionaires, green billionaires, who stand to make a lot of money out of it. Now, I'm not a conspiracy theorist by any means, but this is documented that they are funding all different groups. And so whenever they need a press release about a particular thing, they put that out from one group, and then the other groups all agree with them. So it's a scheme.
Okay, I've got a few more statistics, guys. So another aim that they have is to slash methane emissions. However, the World Meteorological Organization warned that the biggest year-on-year jump in methane concentrations in 2021 since record keeping began.
That cow farts.
Oh, yeah, pretty much.
Yeah, cow farts.
Human farts. I don't know if everyone in China farts at once, or I don't know. But
Yeah.
so the biggest jump
Well, no
in the
beans.
last year, the biggest jump on record since records began. So that's
Yes.
the methane emissions.
Well, so what you're trying to say, they're no able to do anything.
Well, also, I was just getting to quitting fossil fuels. Germany has called, so they're all the Europeans and everything are trying to cut out fossil fuels, as we know. But this year, Germany has had to call for new investments in gas because it has to replace its Russian gas supply with alternatives. Right. It's like, who would ever have thought, huh? So the overall conclusion is that since last year, they all met up last year, they made all these pledges, they made all these promises, and guess what? They haven't been able to get anywhere near any of them. In fact, most of them are much worse.
And this is the obligatory reminder that Scotland is responsible for only 0.1% of global emissions, while China is responsible for 29%, as far as I understand, and then India, and then the United States. Countries that actually can change emissions, if that's the thing that you think is important in the world. Well, it seems like a jolly. She likes to get, as you say, you don't ever get don't ever get in between Nicola Sturgeon and a camera. This is a very dangerous place to be. That's the most dangerous place in Scotland, or in fact, even in the entire world. So we can hopefully, that was a good segment there, Mary.
We've got a little joke here. Craig says, if Sturgeon stopped talking, methane wouldn't be a problem.
Yeah, quite.
Thanks for that, Craig.
Right, okay, coming up, we have, it's going to be Dave's going to do a Nationalist Big Lie once I find the actual graphic for it. Okay, here we go. All right.
Okay, Smokey. So this week's big SNP lie focuses on the Constitution. Now, as we all know, a favourite Scottish nationalist soundbite these days is, ever since 2016, Scotland was dragged out of the EU against our will. That's what they tell us. As we also know, EU membership and support for the EU was never SNP policy, right up until very late, really, until the late 80s, when the independence in Europe mantra was coined by, among others, Jim Sellers, and he won a famous by-election in Hamilton, I think it was, on that standpoint. The idea being that Scotland, instead of being a nation within the UK, would be a nation within the EU.
Now he's against Europe, though, isn't he?
Absolutely, indeed. I mean, they always will. Anyway, so until those days, the SNP was completely anti-EU. And then again, that all turned when it came to the Brexit referendum, because the SNP saw EU membership as a flag of convenience, if you like, for saying, oh, this is something that's going to happen against our will. And so ever since the Brexit vote happened, which, let's not forget, guys, the Brexit vote was a vote on whether the UK should stay within the EU, not Scotland. It was about the United Kingdom. The United Kingdom, which Scotland 2 years previously had voted to remain within. So let's not kid ourselves that this is anything undemocratic. Scotland voted to remain in the UK. The UK then voted to leave the EU. That's what happened. Okay, no question about democracy being flouted, not at all. Anyway, so at the time of the Scottish independence referendum, a phrase which was much used was a change in material circumstances. There will be no question of another referendum unless there is a change in material circumstances, which could trigger a second independence referendum.
Yeah, but I looked this up because I kept hearing this change in material circumstances change. And I looked up, and you know who started this change in material circumstances talk? Nicola Sturgeon herself.
Oh.
Right. So, I mean, here she is in 2015. Sturgeon says only material change could spark Scottish referendum. Excuse me.
There you go.
See, the important point in this material change thing is that when we had the actual referendum, it never said on the paper, it never said in the white paper, it never said in the Edinburgh Agreement, it didn't say anywhere. It didn't say, we'll have this one, and then if there's a change in the circumstances, we'll have another one. Never said that. That's not what happened. What happened was they all went out and said it was a once in a generation opportunity, and they used that as a sales technique to get people out, because that's what you do.
Yeah.
This is you get one chance to get independence. You better get out. That's it. And now they turn around and say, no, it wasn't actually once in a generation.
That's
No,
true.
no. We didn't mean that. A generation's 7 years, isn't it? You know,
Yep,
stuff
Maybe
like
it's
that.
best out of 3.
Well, that goes like
quite.
that. I mean, that's the thing.
Quite ludicrous.
So basically what they've done is they've made up this thing, material change in circumstances, and then they said, oh, but there's been a material change in circumstances now. You say, well, who said that? Well, we said that.
Yeah, quite. Absolutely.
Nonsense, utter nonsense.
It is nonsense. But
Chancers.
Chancers is right. This is the scenario that's presented by SNP MPs and MSP who all, to a man, to a woman, obediently parrot the party line on this issue. Now, it starts to go wrong for them when you actually ask them or question them about even the most fundamental issues or fundamental cornerstones of this idea that they might want to join the EU. So, for example, this week I've taken to asking on Twitter, anybody who comes on with any nationalist who comes on with any kind of pro-EU sentiment, I'll say, okay, that's fine. I wonder if you could help me with some timetable here. Okay, so could you just tell me, when is it you plan for Scotland to become independent? And for how long will an independent Scotland then use the pound sterling using sterlingisation? And following that, by what date will a Scottish currency be launched? Following that, when will we go to the fourth stage of currency arrangements? And when will Scotland adopt the EU, or the euro rather? And following that, when will Scotland finally join the EU? None of them can even answer even the first question. So
no, I mean it's just that it all happened in like the 32nd of never.
Absolutely,
you know, there's no. I mean, you think after 8 years, we laugh about this in the show, but after 8 years, they would have an idea and say, right, we're going to join, but they're going to join in 5 years. We've talked to the EU. This is what it would work. We've done our plans and all this. They come up with this nonsense last week. We talked about last week or the week before.
Yes.
Where their economic plan, but they just don't have anything now. They just basically say it's going to be all right in the night. You know, not for us. We'll lead you to the promised land. Manna will fall down from the heavens. We'll all be stuffed fat, full of stuff, and we can all worship at the cult golden image of Nicola Sturgeon, and we'll all be happy. That's basically it.
I don't think there's any more to it than that,
isn't it?
Say that again, Mary. Sorry.
It's what's commonly known as winging it.
Winging it is right. Exactly. Or they're very much just wheesed for Indy. That's what I say. So this is it's interesting though that latterly the answers that I'm getting are not. They don't answer the questions in terms of dates. Just like the SNP's much heralded white paper last week had no dates in it either. None. Not a single date. Not a single figure. Nothing. So the group think these days seems to be, well, it's not all that necessary for Scotland to join the EU anyway once we become independent. We can just join EFTA. That will be fine. Now, EFTA, for those of you who know, the European Free Trade Association, which the UK joined way back in the day and then left when it joined the EC. Not the EU. That's what the new thinking is among separatists in Scotland. How many countries are in EFTA, do we think? 4. Iceland, Liechtenstein, Norway, and Switzerland. So these are the countries.
Really?
Exactly, that's it. Those are the countries with whom Scotland is going to independent Scotland.
Really? I mean,
exactly.
Really?
Yeah, that's it. It's a joke. So this group exists to promote free trade amongst themselves. So just imagine all the trade we can do with Liechtenstein when we're independent, and in the European Union and globally. So
I just have to say, I mean,
we can get Toblerone. So.
How did we ever get to the situation in this country where this kind of chancing is actually seen as a legitimate form of politics?
Exactly.
How did this happen? It's beyond belief. You know, I mean, when you think it couldn't get any worse, when they've had their 8 years, they've had multiple plans, and now their even latest plan isn't a refined plan. It's actually more vague than the last plan. It's, you know, at some point people have to say, this is utter crap.
Exactly.
And why are you falling for this? No, but I don't mean that. I mean the majority. The majority does think that, but the real majority, everyone has to say, you know, this is nonsense, utter nonsense. Why are you persisting with this insanity? It's crazy.
Indeed, it is.
Yeah, sorry, I just had to go on with that.
You're right, and you're expressing my views to the letter. But one thing I want to add is, so this idea that only material change in circumstance would facilitate a rerun of the referendum is the reason why the SNP has been so hysterically pro-EU. But now they're saying, well, we're not going to join the EU. We'll just join this pathetic little trading bloc out here amongst all these tiny little countries.
I think that's just some of the nutters that are saying that. I don't know if it's SNP. Is it SNP policy?
Well, I'm not sure it is. I think at the SNP, who knows? I mean, we talked about it last week, didn't we? The SNP policy, the length of time which Scotland will continue to use sterling under sterlingisation is somewhere between 3 months and 20 years. That's SNP policy. I mean, seriously, that's it. Their two currency guys are at both ends of that range. So there is no SNP policy. They're literally making it up as they go along.
Well, because I think what she wanted to do is to make any independence referendum a kind of joint referendum. It's instead of having a referendum for Scotland to break up the UK, what they would and at the same time and then have a separate one to join the EU once Scotland was independent.
Yes.
Then they would have to combine them. So it's kind of like, do you want Scotland to be... It would be assumed that if Scotland was independent, it would then go back into the EU, which, of course, quite a few SNP members are not very happy about. But I guess they were just, again, wished for India. How much wishing can one actually do?
The reason I'm laughing is I got this comment, maybe they could just join the Tufty Club.
The Tufty Club! I was a member of the Tufty Club when I was 5
years old. Tufty Club badge,
primary school. It was for crossing the street. Well done. Fantastic. Yeah, that would be great.
I don't even know the kid across the street.
You're too young, Mark.
Yeah, quite. So, guys, all I would say is, everyone out there, when you hear SNP supporters, so independent supporters, coming up with this absolute hogwash about EFTA instead of EU membership, just point out.
EFTA off.
EFTA off, exactly. In that case, if you don't want to join the EU, what are these material changes in circumstance if you don't even want to join the organisation which you claim your ceased membership constitutes a change in circumstance? Guys, get real, please. Don't treat us like mugs. So that's it. So when you point this out, guys, I guarantee they'll become very angry because they don't have an answer. Because they
don't have any answers. We just every day. It's like I'm so bored with them, know, and just they're so tedious. It's like you say to them, "How do you get a referendum without an S30?" Oh, well, we've got a plan. Oh, tell us the plan. Okay, no plan. Okay, then you go. All right. Oh, you'll see, or they'll say TikTok. Right, and you're like, well, TikTok isn't a plan. TikTok's not a plan. What's your actual plan? And then they just go away, and after a while, they're going to bore me to death. That's the problem. Anyway, we hope that you're not bored to death watching me get exasperated about the just complete lack of clarity in the SNP's plans. But there are a few things you can do. You can support the show. How about that? You can donate. Go to our website, click the donate button, buy a t-shirt or a mug. And you can, all important, subscribe to the show on YouTube. We need more subscribers. If you can't do that, fair enough. But please do it. Then you can tell your friends about us. Or you can do all of those things, every single one of them. Don't make me write the list, say the list again. Anyway, coming up, it's the highlight of the week.
Yay.
The moment we've all been waiting for.
Yay.
It is Zoomer of the week.
Yay.
Just wanted to say, David, that was a good.
Thank you very much.
Right, okay, so I'm just going to keep mine short in time. Mine is Zoomer of the week is Billy Kay, who appears to have what I have called scotocoprolixia.
That sounds terrible, Mark. What is it?
It's Latin for talking a lot of shite in Scottish.
Like it.
There's a lot of it around then.
Anyway, if you remember, Billy Kay was on the show. I'm not sure if he won the Zoomer of the week.
He should have done.
He was a good contender.
Yeah, because he was last time he was reading from an ancient book that highlighted the difference between Scottish and English soldiers to prove that Scots are superior to the English. and which is this
our,
one
our
thing.
army's bigger than their army.
Well, just like the Scottish soldiers are so much better than the English soldiers, so that means we have to have, in 1540. So that means we have to have independence in
Exactly.
2023,
Yeah.
stuff like that. Anyway, so he starts. Actually, that's a good point, though. But I did want to mention this. We're going to make a list of all the Zoomers who've ever been, so that we can keep track of who's been a Zoomer in the past and who's not. Right. Anyway, he's out there and he's writing stuff like this. I can't even. I don't know if I can even deal with this. This is the kind of thing he writes.
Scots-tober.
Right. So just because my team tint a match, a cause, or stick it officials, I'm no going to expend a day pleading. No me scunners. That's typical. And then there's another one here. I'll just read the end of this one. As a block of sig uxum and ignorant creatures, I bid you for a yunt their bile, bra. Oh, where did David go? David disappeared.
I think I'm back. Sorry about that, guys.
Back. That was weird.
David couldn't stand it. He had to.
Couldn't listen to Billy Kay any longer. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
As you can see at the top here, we have used a good Scottish word to describe this. There we go. And here's the usage. Did you see Nicola's latest plan? It's pure pish, man. Stick a wee bisms Dane my head in. There we go. That's the kind of nonsense he can't even spell that. He couldn't even spell that like that. This is, and they try and tell us this is the language. It's just like, oh, come on, mate. Come on, really, just
not good enough.
I wonder if he talks like that in Tesco.
Yeah.
Oh, yon bra, pint of milk.
Mark, I think you need some old Scotty lessons.
Yeah,
I do actually.
We'll
that would be something. That would be something. I think.
So that you can communicate.
Oh God. Anyway, fine. Anyway, whatever. Moving on. That's my nomination.
Okay.
Just a nutter. Anyway. Right.
Okay.
David. Yes.
Yeah. My nomination for Zoomer of the Week is Alba councillor, friend of the show, I think it's fair to say, and the party's General Secretary, Christopher McEleney. Mark, I think you know this man.
Yes, wasn't he on? He was on last week with I've lost my thing with the wee thing. He was on last week with doing not last week, a few weeks ago. He was complaining about the Union flag being flown outside of Ferguson's shipyard and got John Swinney to take it down, only highlighting the fact that the saltires around the shipyard highlighted the fact that it was the Scottish government's completely responsible for misspending almost £500 million of taxpayers' money.
Exactly, and he focused on the flag. Brilliant. Well, that tells you a lot about Chris. So he's been in top form this week also. Now McEleney, you guys may not know this, he's been the subject of a lot of controversy on social media since about 2015, when he once tweeted lyrics from a song glorifying the IRA in order to label the British government terrorists. It was something like, "You dare call me a terrorist while you look down the barrel of your gun," something like that, which is an IRA song. And he quoted this, and then he was told, like, "What are you doing?" And, I didn't realise, some nonsense. Anyway, that's McEleney. Anyway, he's been very active in recent weeks, and I would have to caveat this with saying he's not going to win Mastermind, this guy. He is about as bright as 3 a.m. in the middle of December in the Arctic Circle. He is really, really, he makes John Mason look like Carl Sagan, seriously. Anyway, today, the bold Chris came up with two notable tweets. The first one was when he asked this morning, which is a standard nationalist separatist cliche, if Scotland is such a drain on UK resources, why is the British establishment so desperate to keep Scotland in the UK? Chris's answer to his own question, the reality is that for over a century, Scotland has been Westminster's wallet. Okay, so now we know that back in the 20s, during the time of the general strike, and in the 1930s, during the time of the Great Depression, it was only Scotland, apparently, that was keeping the UK from going under. So nice to know. Thanks for that, Chris.
Well, I mean, what can you expect from Albeman? I found his Albeman picture here. Here we go.
Yep.
What a hero.
Albeman to the rescue.
Yay! We need some music for Alba Man.
Oh,
I
we
think.
should make a
Yeah, we
special
need to get
Alba
some
Man
music
thing because
for
he's
him.
on here quite a bit. We should maybe get a whole thing. Alba Man,
every other week.
Alba Man section.
That would be great, exactly. But I mean, he posted on nothing today about Celtic fans in Madrid. Well, I don't even want to talk about it. But it just shows you this is what Chris really thinks. He's not really interested in nationalism. He wants to present his own very narrow view of what life in Scotland should be about and what stops life in Scotland being right for people of his persuasion. That's all Chris cares about. So, but interestingly though, he does spend a lot of time as an Alba senior guy criticising SNP policy these days, because of course Alba and SNP are at loggerheads now. Alba think that the SNP should be calling for independence now, a Scottish currency tomorrow, and the EU membership next Thursday. That's what they actually think. And of course that's not going to happen. So while the SNP are doing that, Alba are getting strips off them. So it's quite amusing to see McEleney having a go at them at this thing.
But it's a bit like two tramps fighting over a beer can.
Absolutely.
It's like it's not. While it might be entertaining for a while, it's not really going to get. Nobody feels
it's not going to get anywhere. Exactly. But while he remains a bitter separatist who is unable to resist the temptation to get his own views aired on his Alba social media account, he will always be a likely candidate for Zoomer of the Week, and that's why I'm voting this week.
Right. I think it's a good choice, of course. It's a good choice. Okay. All right, Mary, you're going to be up.
Okay, so my Zoomer of the Week is Neil Hanvey. Hanvey today asked our PM, Rishi Sunak, during Prime Minister's questions, if he thought Scotland was a hostage in a territorial British colony.
Right.
Did you see that? Really?
Yeah, I should say it.
Yeah.
We've got the clip.
Okay, show the clip, Mark.
Neil Hanvey. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Prime Minister will know that it's Scotland's energy resources that feed corporate profits and keep His Majesty's Treasury pumped full of cash to the tune of £8 billion in the last 9 months alone. In return, candidates in the summer Tory leadership contest tried to outdo each other in their contempt and hostility to Scotland's democracy. So without falling back on the "you've had your vote" trope, can the Prime Minister tell me, is Scotland in a voluntary and respectful union of equals as claimed in 2014, or are we hostages in a territorial British colony?
Minister. Mr. Speaker, what people across Scotland rightly want to see is both their governments working constructively together to improve their lives. That's what we will do on this side of the House. And part of that is actually supporting Scottish energy producers, which he is right, have a vital role to play in enabling our transition to net zero and improving our energy security, and those Scottish companies will have our full support.
You kind of wonder, that, like Rishi Sunak would just go over there and grab him by the say, "Get out of here, it's not a load of rubbish."
Well, you could hear all the groaning that went on, couldn't you? And Lindsay Hoyle laughing his head off there. I think the funniest part, though, was his comment that about keeping His Majesty's Treasury pumped full of cash to the tune of £8 billion. Now, the UK Treasury has an income of £819 billion a year. So this £8 billion is like less than 1%. So we're hardly keeping it pumped full of cash, are we?
No. I mean, I was reading a thing today, actually, and it was this by Thomas Edward Black, who's on Twitter, and he basically calculated between 1990 and I think 2019 that Scotland contributed 1.5 billion to the Treasury and excess. And the excess that the UK contributed to Scotland was 150 billion. That's the difference. And the thing is, people don't actually realise that. And then they say this, they say, well, it's like we're rich and got all these resources, but they ignore, of course, JERS and all these other, reality. So, but if they left, they would just lose all that money straight away. But they don't care about money. It's not really about the money. We always try and say that it's not about the money. It's not a money issue.
No, it's not. It's a cultural issue. Apparently, we're so different culturally from.
Yeah, well, that's right. Well, it's not a controversial issue. Well, it's not really any issue. It's just a load of nonsense, a load of made-up stuff.
Quite.
You want to ride a unicorn into the sunset? Come with me. That's kind of what it comes down to. 3 unicorns. I have some actually in the back there. So follow me instead. My unicorns are better. Right. Okay. Is Mary, you done with that section?
Yeah. I think we're about out of time, guys. So,
oh, right. Okay. Well, sorry, David better then say what it.
Right. Who?
You decide.
Me? Am I deciding? Okay.
Who's it going to be?
Let's have a look. Should we go for Neil Hanvey? Yeah, let's go for Neil Hanvey, because that was for coming up with that utter nonsense. I'm going to give you that one, Neil Hanvey, because Scotland has been bankrolling England. Yeah, okay, that's fine. Okay, mate. Yeah, brilliant. That's why you're really tough.
Well, he loses his seat. I mean, surely he'll lose his seat. Nobody's going to vote for Albert the next general election, are they?
He represents Kirkcaldy, I believe.
Okay. Well, it's been oppressed for long enough.
Good people in Kirkcaldy.
Quite exactly.
It wasn't bad enough when they were oppressed by the English. Now they're oppressed by Neil Hanvey. Okay. Anyway, we will be back for another show next Wednesday, November 9th, at our usual time of 7 p.m. You see, we're having a great time. You go and look at some of those nationalist shows. They're all like, oh, God, Nicola Sturgeon is so bad to me. Oh, it's terrible. We're not going to get independence. And they're all greeting. We're having a bit of a laugh here,
Yes, exactly. Rightly
Can't
so.
laugh or just cry, so we may as well laugh.
Right.
Okay.
Oh, David,
so thank you. It's just to say thanks to all the donors for your support as always. Much, much, much appreciated. Thank you all so much.
And thank you also to UK Union Voice and United Against Separation and the other pages that support us. We really appreciate it. Thank you.
Right, and if you haven't already done so, please subscribe to our YouTube channel. I'm legally obliged to ask you to do that. So, and also to do the thought for the week. Nationalists are always whining democracy is being denied, or that it's not working. But wait a minute. They lost a democratic referendum, which has consequences. So they can't get an SS30 in a second referendum. That is also democracy. And then they think the UK should bend to their will when they only have 45 out of 650 UK Parliament seats. And that's not the way it works. Democracy doesn't work that way. Democracy, in fact, is fine. And that's the thought for the day. We will see you again next week. Thank you all for your chats.
And thank you all for your comments.
Thanks, everyone.
And for being with us. We'll see you soon.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night, everyone.